It's Delaware Thursday, July 30th. I'm Peter MacArthur. Thanks for coming by today. You know this, as you're a regular listener. Every now and again, we want to keep you up to speed on what's happening in the jobs market. And when we do that, we call in Chris Burkhard, Placer Staffing in Newark, to join us, just like we're doing today. Hey, Chris, good morning.
Hey, Pete. Good morning to you.
Let me ask you this, Chris. The latest jobs numbers caught a lot of economists kind of off guard. We were expecting to see steady gain, maybe around 115,000 jobs, but the economy only brought in about 57,000. So after a strong spring, did summer heat kind of cool off the job market?
Well, you know, when you look at the trends month to month, it does seem like it's ping-ponging and ping-ponging all over the place. But if you look at the last 6 months, the growth is much more obvious. But there is a bit of a paradox in all of this. Unemployment actually went down, even though the jobs was just such a modest number. And it's interesting, as economists I guess they have more questions than answers, as 800,000 people left the workforce. Just to put things into perspective, normally it's 200 to 250,000. About 6,000 boomers a day retire. So for some reason, there's this look at the workforce and just that there are less workers in that workforce, that participation rate. But the summary is the job market is improving, yet statistics are showing changes and inconsistencies that tend to work themselves out. If you trust my live pool that is Placers Delaware, I see hiring again. But the numbers, yes, they do ping pong all over the place.
We are hearing a lot about anxiety concerning technology taking over jobs, but there is new research out that suggests the real crisis won't be a lack of work, Chris. It'll be a shortage of workers, and a pretty severe one at that. So walk us through that concept of long-term labor scarcity. Are we moving into this era where the worker actually holds the cards?
Well, this is not a 2026 thing per se, but it is something that's going to come pretty quickly. So the simple answer is yes, workers are going to hold more of the cards, but why is really interesting. There are going to be less workers entering the workforce over the next decade. We touched on workers leaving the workforce, but it's simple demographics. It takes 16, 18, 21 years to produce a worker. When you heard the term war for talent, this is really where it all began. Aging workforce, less workers of the age to begin to work. So here's the wild thing. In the decade that we're in, the 2020s, 9 million workers will enter the workforce. Now, those that do this study say in the 2030s, there'll actually be 2 million less. And that's the first time in modern times that our workforce is on a decline in a 10-year chunk like that. So that's really good for workers. They're going to be at a premium. But what's the solution? Well, truth is workers are working much longer. We're not working 30 years with the gold watch. People are working 60 years.
Yeah.
Immigration. We'll have only 200,000 or 300,000 immigrants, in the country this year. But in 2024, we had 2.7 million. So that's got to be a part of the plan. And, the truth is this is the case for more tech, more automation, more AI. That's why that does make sense.
Yeah, it does make sense when you put it that way. As we referenced at the top, Chris, general hiring slowed down last month, but temporary staffing jumped by over 9,000 jobs. So does this temp paradox, if you will, mean that employers are afraid to commit to full-time headcounts?
Well, I think this matters to workers that are looking for work and employers that are growing fast again. So for the last 30 years, the temporary staffing world's really been an early indicator of both slowdowns and recovery. So business may have work to do, product to get out the door, phones to answer, projects to complete. But at this phase of the recovery, committing to labor for a long period of time can be tough. So they use temporary staff or the gig economy to address that. But really it happens because firms have to scale their own personnel department. They don't have a lot of human resources people involved, and that's why they turn to this bit of outsourcing.
Yeah.
But that 10,000 or 9,000 number is a massive number, as the temp workforce has been stabilizing, but was on decline for several years, which sort of was indicative of the job market.
Well, even beyond the temp work, Chris, and I think this is a surprise to no one, employers are shifting kind of how they evaluate talent. Some aren't even doing traditional interviews so much anymore, but instead paid in-office trials for some short projects or something along those lines. This is really your wheelhouse. Is this a better way to find talent, or maybe an unfair hurdle for job seekers to have to deal with?
It's a new idea, but the same concept, Pete. The reality is, I think we've touched on this. Resumes and cover letters have gotten too good. AI makes it so mere mortals can have these spectacular presentations. So everyone has a better one. And where the automation has helped is we're all able to apply to so much stuff so much quicker. And I'm talking about the days, imagine where you had to take a resume, do a cover letter, put it in an envelope, put a stamp on it. You can send 10,000 resumes with a click of a button. So it really has evolved so much. But businesses have always struggled between the gap of however they evaluate a person and how that person shows up on the first day. So organizations are doing a lot of this, especially as things move towards thinking, project management. Jobs are less admin today. They're less clerical. They are more decision-making. So this idea of having concepts where people come in and work on their potential new team or they work on a project, it actually kind of makes sense because that's where a lot of the job is moving. What is frustrating in many ways is that, I think workers should be more open to this idea of proving their skills and working with businesses. But I think businesses have to get more clear by at which point someone gets paid to do this. This is new territory, but I like it because I think it's producing different outcomes. But if the workforce is open, it's exposure to people, and you can really learn a lot about, you like working with this team and working with this business. People feel like they're being taken advantage of versus embracing it as the unique opportunity that I think it is.
If you are just joining us, this is Delaware. I'm Peter MacArthur, talking with Chris Burkhard, Placer Staffing in Newark, getting our kind of monthly look at the jobs market. Shift gears here, Chris. When we pull back the curtain on hiring, healthcare right now really propping up the market. Hospitality, though, other end of the equation, about a 60,000 job hit. Tech continues to slide. If you're a local worker kind of looking to pivot, smartest place to point your career right now? That's a pretty daunting question.
It is, and just a couple of easy, pieces to this. Hospitality and has really been hit, but it was expected to really rise on the back of the World Cup. Maybe not so much here in Delaware, but there's a suggestion that workforce was hired earlier or that there wasn't the need that was anticipated. It was just a mistake in planning in terms of numbers. So as I usually say, this too shall pass kind of thing. It's 1 month. It usually washes itself out the next month. But here in Delaware, unemployment dropped from 5.1 to 4.9%. But what is interesting, for the first time in over a year, manufacturing, professional services, and transportation that have been down are starting to rebound. So that notion of healthcare leading the way or private education leading the way, there's beginning to be a distribution of jobs in more industries and verticals, and it's just a trickle.
Yeah.
But, there was a big article this week in one of the big business daily newspapers that had a lot of big brand names talking about that they're publicly launching large hiring plans. And the thought was AI was going to replace entry-level talent. Well, in fact, we need people to keep an eye on AI.
Let's talk more about that. It's been a couple of months now since high school grads and college grads kind of walked down the aisle. They did the diploma. They maybe are wrapping up a summer job. So those early career workers, right, trying to get their foot in the door. And as you're referencing here, the entry-level jobs being actively reshaped by AI. Some industries like tech pulling back. What's your advice to that young grad trying to nail down that first really crucial professional job?
Why do I feel my advice may be to their parents or their guardians at this moment as much as it is to that early career person? I said this, but this too shall pass. Every 4 or 5 years, there is an environment that is hard on early career workers. The reasons for it are different. We're just coming out of a really weird time with jobs and jobs creation, and this thing called AI where all of a sudden, I think AI will do every job we normally thought that a college grad would do. Well, that's being rethought right in front of our eyes. But I do think strategies for early career stuff really, it does make sense. What I would start with is, be busy, keep busy. Organizations want to see that you're being productive. So do whatever you can to pay the bills. There are whole careers in walking dogs and running errands for pay. It's not forever unless you want it to be. And I see careers and entrepreneurial type stuff being, birthed all the time because of that. The other thing is early career folks think networking is a dirty word. But start with that alumni. Talk to your career counselors. Talk to your friends and family and start to build that group of informal advisors that can help you. And I know you went to school for something, and here's where I get very unpopular, Pete, but be flexible. Realize the first job is rarely your last one. It's about learning and the experience. So, just honestly take a job. And I'm sure I'll get a little bit of hate email on that, but I'm a firm believer that what we learn and what we don't like is as important as what we do like in our first job.
And for people getting frustrated, they're applying for jobs, Chris, or not hearing back. A lot of times it's because automated computer screeners are throwing out your resume before any real eyes get on it. So ending this whole thing on an up note, I know that you and your team kind of have an initiative in place to help out people that find themselves in that tricky position.
We sure do. We have this 2032 goal to help the next 500,000 people in our community. So if anybody needs help with their resume, we'll review and clean it up for you for free. And we'll see if we can't get it past those robots and Autobots and into a hiring manager's hand. But all you have to do is, email us at info@myplacers.com and put resume in the subject line, and we'd be delighted to assist you.
Yeah, brilliant. Brilliant. Love it. Chris, as always, so informative. Thank you so much for the time and for the information this morning. We will talk again soon.
Look forward to it.